All right. Hi, everybody. I hope you all are on. This is the first time we're doing this. We had some new technology to learn, so you're learning along with us. But we're really, really excited. You can see I'm wearing my USA, my American flag shirt, because our United States of America needs a little bit of love right now. But we have a lot of information to share. We're going to try to do as much of an overview as we can because, as you know, we're following up with the 30-day challenge, which ends on July 3rd, right before 4th of July. So we are going to get started. We're going to take you through all 5 essentials, talk to you about the challenge that's going to follow, and hopefully inspire you to take action. And with me, I have my husband, Fred Roberto, and I've got Dr. Anthony White with us too. And so these guys are brilliant with all of these health topics that we're going to talk about. But then the 3 of us together are really, really good at getting results for people. So I promise you, if you join us for this 30-day challenge, whether you're all in or you're just waiting in, we're going to get you where you need to be. All right. Go ahead, you guys.
Sure. I'll jump into this. So, we wanted to do this in the light of this COVID-19 epidemic that we're facing. And, I think a lot of people are really lost at this point. And, we want to do something about it. And there's a lot of half-truths and full lies that are out there, and we want to cut to the chase and get people set on a path. So we're going to cover some great information. So we are going to be covering all of the laws and principles that govern health through this process. And there's definitely going to be a association back to building a titanium immune system and how to overcome this epidemic issue and beyond. And afterwards, we don't want this just to be informational. That's why we do a 30-day challenge. So we can literally, after we do the information session, then we'll take you by the hand over the 30-day process and day by day help people to really make massive transformations and take this information and with practical application, turn it into an amazing transformation. You want to add anything to that, Dr. White? Some opening comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this. So first of all, this is the first time we're doing Jim said, so this is exciting. And I think it's going to be great. But yeah, when it comes to results, information is great, but information doesn't change anyone. Transformation does, right? And so we have to have action. Action is the bottom line. So if you want to be transformed, you're going to take everything that we're going to say in the next several minutes, and you're going to start to employ it. You're going to start to include that in your life. And that's when you're going to start to see results.
Yeah, and I think we're really going to nail that whole information into action and outcomes. More importantly, we'll talk specifically about that. And I think that's the crux of the problem right now, is that we are living in a culture, and it's our cultural values that are determining where we're at right now, individually and as a society. And I think. As we get through this and people begin to see the light and we have a quest for an understanding of the truth, things become crystal clear. You're able to discern through that sea of misinformation that's out there that I was talking about, again, the half-truths and the full lies, and really get to the fundamental truths. And really, when you line up with the truth sets you free. It'll never send you on a wrong path. But what is the truth? And, with this COVID-19 thing, it's like the answer cannot be to just be filled with fear and anxiety and go hide in the corner of your house and hope a virus doesn't find you. That cannot be the solution to the problem, but yet that's how we've been approaching things. And if you look at the way that we live our lives, and by the way, if you also look at our outcomes and the level of health that we enjoy, and not only us, but our patients and people that were sick that become amazingly healthy too, it's not by accident that we find ourselves into these optimum outcomes. It's by the values that we live according to. And so we've approached this COVID-19 a lot different than most other people. And let me just start off with this. It's just a fundamental understanding of how and why anyone would get sick in the first place. There's 2 sides of the equation. Yes, there is the germ. You can't get sick without the germ, but there's another side of the equation too. So we've lived on the one side of the equation where it was like, let's at all costs and all measures, let's go and avoid those germs. Again, like I said, let's go hide in the corner of our house. We're going to sterilize everything. We're not going to come in contact with anybody. And we're going to hope that the germ doesn't find us. But that's not how life was meant to be lived. And I think that's what has been incredibly remiss through this whole entire pandemic is the other side of the equation. And that's the fact that you would never get sick unless you're a susceptible host. I mean, we've been given an immune system, an immune response. And if you have a titanium immune system, then the germ doesn't stand a chance, including COVID-19. It doesn't stand a chance. We've been fighting this battle every single day for the last almost 30 years. So every time the flu season comes around, when there was H1N1, there was all these other outbreaks, we were fighting the same exact battle. And you know what? The laws and principles that govern health don't change. The human species has seen cross-species contamination like this in pandemics since the beginning of mankind, and we've gotten over it every single time. And you know, the plan was never to go hide in a corner, and it can't be the plan this time. And it's not our plan. It's not how we live our lives. And we want to share that with people and know that there's another way. There's a different way. There's a better way. There's the other side of the equation. God did not make us insufficient and powerless. He made us powerful. We are fully sufficient and we're strong. We're intended to be amazingly healthy and well. And when our bodies are working the way they're intended to, then we enjoy amazing health and well-being and don't have anything to be so fearful over. You want to run with that, Dr. White?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about the immune system because, you know, Dr. Roberta, you're right. You know, throughout this whole thing, you would get the idea that as human beings, we are these weak creatures and organisms that God just kind of created us and left us and said, well, you guys fend for yourselves. But, you know, we are amazingly made, right? There's such an amazing design to us. So when you look at the immune system, for example, let me just spend a few minutes talking about the immune system. The human immune system is so incredibly complex, okay? And so just to give you some basic science and anatomy about the immune system. When you look at the immune system, there's really two aspects to the immune system. It starts with your skin, and you have what's called the innate immunity. So your skin, your mucosa, your nose, your mouth, your ears, that's where your immune system starts. And you have this innate immune system. So the minute that your innate immune system is able to recognize, whether it be a virus, a bacteria, parasites, or even cancer cells, right away it goes into action. And when that happens, right away, it starts to mobilize cells, it starts to release enzymes, and it starts to recognize and kill any invaders. The thing about the immune system, right, is like throwing a hand grenade in a room. So in other words, it's very fast, but it's very general. And that's why with your innate immune system, you'll know that it's working because that's when you have like a runny nose. That's when you have itchy eyes. That's when you're sneezing. That's when you have an inflammatory response. You may even see an allergic reaction. And so that's your innate immune system. And quite often, your innate immune system is good enough to really destroy a lot of the pathogens and invaders. And if it does get deeper past let's say your nose, your eyes, your lungs, and it goes into your stomach, then you actually have the stomach acids will kill it. You actually have microbes and bacteria in your stomach that will kind of finish off the job. And then you have what's called the adaptive or acquired immunity. And so that's the one that's very unique to us as human beings. And that one is more sophisticated. That's like a laser. And that takes a little bit long. So the innate immune system may take just a few days, whereby the adaptive or acquired immune system is going to take more like 7 to 10 days, especially when it first encounters a virus it hasn't seen before. So the whole idea that your immune system encounters a novel virus and it doesn't know what to do, that's not entirely true. Because right away, as it starts to recognize it, that may take, you know, about 7 to 10 days. But the adaptive immune system, that's where we hear about antibodies. So a lot of people have been talking about antibodies. But it's really broken down into what we call a cell-mediated is one part of it. And then you have another part of it, which is really humoral. And so the cell-mediated is really like the military. It's amazing. So right away, you know, the immune system, the adaptive immune system now starts to release cells. And some of these cells will go and find the invader and look for antigens and kill them right away. And you actually have this one cell is like a helper cell. It's like a general. It tells everybody else what to do. It teaches the whole immune system about the virus and the bacteria. And then you have these killer cells. That's like the Marines, right? That's like special forces. They come in and they start to kill cells, and they'll even sacrifice themselves. right? And then you have this other part of your immune system called the suppressor T cells. And what they do is they come along and they go, okay, the fight's over, and they calm everything down. That way you don't have an overreaction. So there's this sophisticated dance that happens in the immune system. And then you have the B cells, and that's your antibodies. And what they'll do is one B cell, for example, let me just show you how amazing your immune system is. One B cell can have up to 200,000 receptors for antigens, right? So that means that one B cell can recognize up to 200,000 antigens. The antigens is kind of like the flag, right? It's kind of like the pirate ship flag of the bacteria and the viruses, so they know that those are the bad guys. And so within seconds, they can produce up to they can replicate themselves and really start to produce, I think it's like something like 200 antibodies per second. So they work quickly and efficiently. And then once they all work together, then what starts to happen is that the cells that are left over, the B cells that are left over, now become the memory cells. So now that's why you have lifetime immunity when you have the infection naturally, because your body now has waged war, right? It's going to win. And now you have memory. You have memory for life. Now, the other part of this equation is the nervous system, right? Over 30 years ago, we were taught, and in science, they said, hey, your immune system is completely separate from your nervous system. The two don't talk. Then within the last 30 years, and really within the last 10 to 15 years, they've realized we've gotten that all wrong. And the immune system and the nervous system are actually very intimate. As a matter of fact, many suggest that the immune system is actually a sensory extension of the nervous system. So the immune system is how the nervous system knows that there's a problem in the body. And then there's a sophisticated dance where, you have groups of literally throughout your body, you have these little communities or villages that are made up of neurons, which are nerve cells or brain cells, plus immune cells, right? And they all come together and they form this network. And their job is to monitor your body in your lymphatic tissue, your blood, and different tissues for any invaders, whether they come from outside or even cancer cells. And then they report back to the nervous system through what's called the vagus nerve, and then through your circulatory system to tell the brain, hey, we've got a problem. And then your brain immediately kicks in and sends information back through your nervous system, again, back through what's called your sympathetic nervous system, and then back through what's called your HPA or your hypothalamus pituitary axis. And the point being, the brain responds immediately and now starts to orchestrate the immune system. So everything I said on the first half is all orchestrated by the nervous system. And then there's this constant dance and feedback where the nervous system is controlling what the immune system is doing and how it's working. So if you understand what I just said over the last few minutes without getting into the weeds, your immune system is incredibly sensitive. Your immune system is incredibly intelligent, and then it's controlled by the nervous system. So that means to have a healthy nervous system, have a healthy immune system, one of the things that you have to do is to have a healthy nervous system. And so we're going to talk, I will at least talk a little bit later about how you want to acquire and how you can acquire a healthy nervous system. So if you see that connection there, it makes perfect sense. And then in the next slide, it talks about the gut immune system balance. And so on there, your gut is a big part of your immune system too. And again, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we didn't know that. Now, so you'll see on the screen, it says that over 70% of the immune system is housed in the gut. And how that works, there's this thing called the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. And really what that is, that's a set of cells that sit beneath the surface of your gut lining. And its job is it receives information from your what's called your microbiome, or the natural bacteria in your gut. And those bacteria let the GALT system know, which is part of your immune system, what's going on and what needs to be done. And so based on that information, the GALT system can either turn on, if you will, the immune response or shut it down. So there's this intricate dance. Once again, you have the gut, which is considered the little brain. You have your brain being your central nervous system and your spinal cord. And then you have the immune system all working together to keep us safe. Now tell me, how amazing is that, right? So now on the next slide, when you see that you have symptoms, symptoms aren't something to be afraid of. A lot of times when we see symptoms and we think it's a disease and we need to medicate it or cover it up, it's really a reflection of the human body doing the right thing, right? So no matter what the symptom is, if it's a fever, well, that's intelligent, right? Because that fever is there to kill the microbe and kill the the bacteria and the viruses, because it knows, the innate intelligence of the body knows that they can't exist at a certain level. When you're coughing and sniffling and sneezing, that's the body trying to get rid of the pathogens, right? Trying to get rid of the invaders. So I know that right now, heavens forbid that you cough or sneeze in public, because you get scorned at, and look, people are holding it back. But remember, we were coughing and sneezing like 6 months ago and a year ago. So it's not this foreign thing. It's something that's natural and the body wants to do. So on the next slide there, I know with Max Living, for those of you who've been on the website, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, Kim or Dr. Roberto, you guys want to say anything real quick before I move on?
Yeah, so we have a lot of like goodies and freebies for you guys. And so this is one of them. And it's, again, just kind of a summary of what Dr. White just explained, how you apply that in your life, right? How you apply the 5 essentials to building your immune system. So it's a quick little handout, it's front and back, and you can share it with your friends too. So I'll make sure that you guys get that as well. But we have lots of goodies for you guys. So that's just one of them. All right, so moving on.
Yeah, and let me just add to that too. At the end of the day, I know everybody's thinking about this COVID-19 thing, and we're applying all this information specifically to that, but this is going to pass. This too shall pass, and there's going to be flu seasons that come and go. We're going to even have other pandemics that come and go over the years and the decades, and all this information applies all of the time. So, when it comes to like the symptoms that Dr. White was talking about, just know that whenever your body has a symptom, just like he said, it's the body doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, and we embrace those things. Now, I also want to make the point, and I did address the fact that there's 2 sides of the equation for people to be sick. There's the germ, and then there's the susceptible host. Remember, germs have a purpose on the planet. They're here to get rid of dead and unhealthy cells. Not according to my order, but according to God's natural order. I didn't put the germs on the planet Earth. And so again, it comes back to, if you're not a susceptible host, the germs don't stand a chance. Dr. White talked about how amazing the immune system is. If you have a titanium immune system, then the germs don't stand a chance. And that's what we want to talk about. That's where we're going to live. That's where we spend our time. That's our space, is talking about that side of the equation and what you could do to protect yourself so that you don't become another statistic of COVID-19. Not only that, but of the flu, of any other pandemic. And it's the same thing that protects you against not only infectious processes, but also from becoming another statistic of cancer, heart disease, or any other disease process for that matter. This stuff applies across the board. And please don't think because we're the only people talking about what you can do and empower yourself to fight the infectious process, it doesn't mean that we completely ignore the other side of the equation. Right? You do what you think you need to do, what you think is prudent in order to protect yourself from the germs. To an extent, you have to be careful and really know fundamental laws, principles, and truths and apply them. But at the end of the day, it's okay. I'm not going to judge anybody and say, just because you're not wearing a mask, you don't believe in these principles. That's not what I'm saying at all. Right? And so by the same token, if you see that I take liberties and I may not wear a mask, or, I may go outside, or I may stay in public, or I may keep my office open. I may keep adjusting people. That doesn't mean that I'm disrespectful to this or insensitive to the situation at hand here. And so in fact, I'm incredibly sensitive to this matter. And just because, I may preach about health and wellness doesn't mean I'm insensitive to the matter, because I will challenge anyone who's more committed, not just to my own health, but to the health of the general population than the 3 people on this line and the network of doctors that think just like us. And so that's what we live for. Our whole life has been dedicated to helping people realize an amazing level of health and to realize their full complement for everything God intended them to be. And you'll hear me talk like this all the time, but I believe everyone's got a purpose, but it's hard to serve your purpose if you're sick, suffering, or dead. And so again, We want to empower people. We want to empower people with the laws and principles that God gave us to be healthy and well. And a law is a law because it applies to all of us all the time, every single time, no matter what you think or believe. I don't care if you don't believe in what I'm saying. I don't care if you don't believe in these laws and principles, but they apply all the time. You don't have to believe in gravity, but the law is he who jumps off a tall building goes splat. And I don't care if you think you're special, if you don't know about it, 100% of the time, every single time on the planet Earth, when you jump off a tall building, you hit the ground really, really hard. That's just how it goes. And 100% of the time, every single time, you're going to be better off lining up with law and principle than not. And just because I'm going to be supportive and representative of these principles, and I preach that this is where the answers lie, and just because I think that way doesn't mean that I'm radical. And there's nothing radical to what we're about to say. There's nothing radical about lining up with these principles. Now, it may be different than what most other people are doing, but it's not radical. And understand the difference between the two. In fact, you want us to be different. You want us to be different than what everyone else is doing. Because if you live your life in congruency with what everyone else in America does, you end up like everybody else. And the statistics of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, the big three and beyond, are outrageous. We are the sickest culture people that's ever existed on the planet Earth, and we need to do something about it. Our message needs to be very different than what you hear from other people. So here's what I'm saying. The law and principles that govern your health they'll never fail you. You may fail them, but they won't fail you. So as we go through this presentation, we're going to be addressing these laws and principles. We're going to talk about the significance of the nervous system and how the body functions and heals, the neurospinal organ, how the spine and nervous system work together to get your body to function at this ideal state and to express in a state of incredible vitality. We are going to talk about putting good food inside of your body. The food you eat becomes the tissue cells of your body, and you'll understand that there's an innate power that takes that food and turns it into the living, loving, thinking clay. But don't think that food doesn't matter, because it absolutely does. So we're going to talk about what food you need to be eating, not just to build a titanium immune system, but to be able to ward off cancer and heart disease, diabetes, all those things, to lose weight and everything else and get those kind of outcomes as well. We're going to talk about how to change the way you think to line up with getting the kind of outcomes you want in your future. And I'll draw that together in just a second, but that is so significant because it all starts in your thought processes. And more important, it's what's in your heart, because that's going to drive what's in your head, as I'll talk about in a minute. We're going to also talk about making sure that your body's moving and exercising. And because it's something that's not a suggestion, a good idea, it's something that you must do if you want to be healthy. Again, we'll bridge the gap between exercise and a strong immune system. And then we're going to talk about keeping your body pure and sufficient. And at the end of the day, it's intended to. If you want to be healthy, your body has to be pure and sufficient. You've got to be making sure that your body's detoxifying and you're not being exposed to all these massive amounts of toxic exposures that we experience in our culture. So again, applying principle, and this is what I'm saying, it's not radical, it's just different. 100% of the time, every single time, you're going to be better off with your body functioning and healing through a healthy nervous system than with more compromise to your nervous system. 100% of the time, every time, you're going to be better off eating good food than junk food. I mean, it's all on principle. I mean, who could argue that? 100% of the time, every single time, you're going to be better with your mindset, your spirit, in a good place rather than in a terrible place. 100% of the time, every single time, you're going to be better off moving your body instead of being sedentary. 100% of the time, every time, you're going to be better off less toxic than more toxic. I mean, how is that radical? It's not radical, but it's very different. And in the face of this coronavirus, it is now the time more than ever that we should be lining up with these principles and not running from them as we go and run and hide in the corner of our house so that the virus doesn't find us. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is the time to be plugging into this stuff. You guys want to add anything to that before we move on?
No, that was perfect.
Kim?
Let's talk about stress and mindset.
Yeah, mindset. Let's get into it. So this is where it all begins. We've got to change the way that we think. So we're basing all of our actions as individuals and as a culture based on values that we create. So how do we create those values? Can you move to the next slide? So I want to talk about this here. So thought to thought to outcome is really what this slide should say. So it all starts with the thoughts that we have. We're inundated with tons of information. And so it's never more highlighted than right now, because what we're doing is we're watching the TV. And again, we're watching all these opinions, and we're watching lots of information being disseminated to us. And again, like I said, you have to be really careful, because it's a sea of information, and most of it is misinformation. There are tons of half-truths and full lies out there that we have to be able to discern what is actually the truth and what is not. And so that's why I feel like people get lost right out of the beginning. So out of all of the thoughts that we're inundated with in a day, there's certain things that you believe in and certain things that you don't. The things you don't believe in, you just dismiss immediately, and never stands a chance of becoming part of your end outcome, your DNA, your physiology, and how you live your life. But the things that we do believe in, you have to be really careful about. And you better hope that those belief systems are lined up with the truth, because the things that we believe in, we choose certain elements of those beliefs to be the things that we hold dear to our heart. Those become our values. And at the end of the day, it's our values where we really begin to shape our future. And so how do you know something is of value to you? Well, one thing that we always tell people is to look at your calendar, look at your checkbook, and where you spend your time and your money and your effort, your energy. Those are the things that are most important to you. Those are the things that you value. Please don't tell me that your health is of value to you and you don't work out. Please don't tell me that health is of critical value to you and you stop it and eat McDonald's every single day. I mean, you can't tell me that your spiritual walk's the most important part of your life, and yet you never go to church or spend any time or energy plugging in spiritually. It just doesn't add up. You have to be real with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror. I mean, you can't say that relationships are the most important. You don't spend time pouring into relationships. And so be real with yourself. Understand what your values are. Because again, like I said, your value gets your time, it gets your energy, and it gets your money. And essentially, those are your actions. And at the end of the day, it's actions that determine outcomes. You can't tell me that you want a healthy, happy future and do everything that's completely the opposite of getting that kind of outcome. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So again, it starts with thoughts and it ends with outcomes. But we have to understand that the values are the most important thing in that middle. So what's really of value to us? And look at the Bible. It's like Hosea 4:6 says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of information. We all know that eating at McDonald's every single day is not going to bring you health, but as a culture, we do it anyway. And so to me, knowledge is an understanding of the truth, is knowing the truth. And we must line up with the truth, because I'd have to challenge what you're really lining up with, right? Does that make sense? So now the other side of that is that when it comes to mindset, is our emotional states, our stress levels, our level of fear and anxiety. And that's really where we have focused on during this pandemic. I mean, there's been so much fear mongering right from the get-go. And again, we were told just to go hide in our house and be afraid. But that is not the normal, natural state of the spirit. In 2 Timothy 1:7, God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but rather a spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. We're not called to be powerless, but powerful. And we also must understand that when we're in that state of stress, we're in a state of fear, when we're in a state of anxiety, it has real and measurable effects on our body's physiology. And when our physiology becomes altered, that leads to dysfunction, and dysfunction over time, not sometimes, but every single time, as we'll go through this, will put our body not in an optimum state of health and vibrant life and ease, but rather a state of dis-ease. So dysfunction over time leads to disease. I'll say it again, dysfunction over time leads to disease. Not sometimes, but every single time. And so what do we do in order to get our body functioning normally? Well, one of those things is by making sure that mind-body connection is intact. We have to make sure that we're not living in a state of fear and anxiety and stress. When you're in that stress, the effects are real and they're measurable, and you affect everything from digestion, respiration, elimination, reproduction, and certainly your immune response.
So when it comes to stress, stress doesn't have to be bad. There's such a thing called eustress. And the human body was really created to be able to adapt. Like the seasons are good. Being out in the sun is good, but also being in cold temperatures is good because it allows the human body to adapt. And as it turns out, when the human body is forced to adapt, it becomes stronger and more resilient. The same thing with your immune system. And we know that to be true. I mean, when you work out, you know that if you work out, you usually get stronger, fitter. There's some marker that gets better when you work out. So there's this whole idea of adaptability. So stress doesn't have to be bad. When stress becomes bad is when stress is prolonged, when it's bad stress, when it's chronic stress. And so if you have chronic stress in your life, over time, your body and your physiology, as Dr. Roberto said, is going to change. So stress, fear, anxiety, sure. In the short term, if you feel like your life is being threatened by, an animal or a person, that's how we were designed. God designed that emergency stress system so that we could fend for ourselves. We can either escape, we can fight, we can live to see another day. But that is a short-term reaction. Unfortunately now, in our society today, we have the proverbial, lion or tiger or enemy in that we're worried about so much. We're worried about the economy. We're worried about viruses. We're worried about our jobs. We're worried about violence. We're worried about, so many different things. And then we have responsibilities. We have to take care of our families. We have to take care of our communities. And so that piles on top of us and it's low level. And one of the dangerous things about stress is that a lot of us don't know that we are because we're so used to it. Quite often I'll talk to patients about stress and they'll say things like, oh, yeah, but I'm used to it. Yeah, you may be used to it cognitively and consciously, but on the subconscious level, your body is still responding the same. And so physiologically, when we're going through what's called the stress response, certain things happen. Physiology changes. Your body now says, hey, you know what? We really don't need to worry about our immune system. We don't need to worry about our reproductive system. And we don't need to worry about our digestive system right now. We need to defend ourselves because our brains and our nervous system don't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So even if you have thoughts of danger, something that may have happened to you in the past, or something that hasn't even happened, but you're afraid of it happening, your brain thinks you're in danger. So right away, it starts to mobilize energy, blood, all of these resources to prepare you to fight. So that's one of the reasons why, you've heard of fight or flight. That's one of the reasons why when you're stressed out, we tend to carry our stresses in certain parts of our bodies. Most people, it's the neck. All right, the shoulders get tight. For some people, it's the lower back. And so you start to grind your teeth at night. So a lot of you are familiar with these things, and these are all signs of chronic stress taking over the body. But while that's happening, right, there's no outlet, there's no release. At least if you're, in danger and you have to run for your life, the act of running itself is going to restore you back to balance, But when we don't have an outlet or a release, what happens is we store that up. And so we have adaptive or altered physiology. So then all of a sudden, we know that stress, for example, weakens the immune system. There's lots of research that shows that when you have stress, it stimulates the part of the nervous system called the amygdala that's responsible for fear and anxiety, right? It causes your blood pressure to go up. It actually interferes with certain what's called neuropeptides in your body. It increases your cortisol levels. It increases your epinephrine, your norepinephrine. These are all chemicals that are involved in things like inflammation. So when you're stressed out, because it does affect your immune system, it's easier to become inflamed. So now you can have systemic inflammation. There's a part of your immune system that's actually there to regulate inflammation that gets turned down. So now you can't modulate your inflammation, right? The body can't shut it down. Stress affects a part of the brain that actually regulates everything called the prefrontal cortex. And so when that happens, you don't have a shutoff valve. And so you're in this perpetual spiral of stress response the whole time. And not only that, research shows that when you're under constant stress as it pertains to your immune system, that you become actually more susceptible to infections of any kind, whether it be virus or bacteria or otherwise, or parasites. And not only do you become more susceptible, but the severity is higher and the duration is longer. So your ability to heal and recover from it is compromised when you're constantly stressed. So certainly you can imagine how that applies today in today's society, when you're obviously concerned and worried about contracting a virus. We see on the news people, dying. And so it's really tough not to internalize that. And so once that starts to happen, the very thing that you fear the most comes upon you, right? It almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because that fear and that stress and anxiety that you have about not, developing a disease or catching a virus or whatever it might be, now becomes a reason you become more susceptible to it, right? So I know that makes perfect sense to you. And so what we want to be able to do is understand, recognize what the stress is, and now have strategies in place to mitigate the stress. But first, you've got to recognize what it is. And throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about ways that you can do that. But later on, throughout the next 30 days, we are going to do much shorter webinars so we can dive a little deeper into some of the nuances and the specifics of things like the immune system and stress, and the nervous system, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I will say that, it's an understanding of these principles that form your values. So it's kind of like, if you don't know this information, it's like, what was your value system going into COVID-19? That determined your actions up to this point. That's why we feel like we need to be out there, getting out there and sharing this information with people so they could change their value system. That's going to change how they react moving forward. And through the course of this 30 days for the people on this line, and you share this information with others, we'll get the information out. But, we're going to start talking about how you can literally create different thought patterns through mental messaging. You create different thought patterns, you end up creating different behavior patterns, and then you end up with different outcomes. So hopefully you could see how a change in your value system, a change in understanding these principles will literally lead to different outcomes for you. And it's not just going to be to help you strengthen your immune system and ward off infectious process, pandemics and things like that. I'm telling you right now, it's the dysfunction that is created when you're in a constant stress environment that leads to not just these issues, but all diseases known to mankind. Because like I said earlier, dysfunction over time is where your physiology ends up when you're in a constant state of stress. Dysfunction over time leads to disease of all kinds. Stress is associated with literally every single disease known to mankind. So it's something that we need to get under control. And I will say that one of my favorite workshops to do is my stress management workshop. And it's a lot different than the way most people would approach stress management. It's not necessarily about, getting a massage or squeezing a stress ball. It's really more about how you perceive your environment in the world. And you may not be able to control, everybody around you or everything around you, but you can certainly control how you react to those things. And again, if you're armed with the right mindset, then everything becomes something different moving forward. And so now, and the other thing I want to say about this too is that there is some serious and real mental and emotional fallout from this pandemic. And I mean, people were becoming affected to the point where it's becoming an epidemic level of PTSD as a result of this. I know there's been many instances where people just couldn't handle it anymore. And I know that there's actually people that have committed suicide because they can't take the stress and the pressure of this kind of thing. And it's going to be an everlasting problem. And so we do need to really be protective of our mindset and state of our spirit and everything else, because that is it's ourself. It's the essence of who we are, our mind and our spirit. And so we have to be really careful on how we're treading our water right now and that sea of information that we are swimming through. And so again, we want to create these new values so when we come out on the other side of this, that things are going to be a lot better for us and we can turn this negative into a major positive. And so let's move on to the next essential. And so here's one thing I always talk about that, it's funny because I did say that when you're under stress, it literally affects your digestive system and the way that your body will digest and absorb and assimilate food. And so it can be said that it's more important of what's eating you than what you're eating. But let's talk about what you should be eating. How's that, Kim?
Yeah, good. And I just wanted to mention one more thing about what you guys talked about. And it's awesome that, I know a lot of people are worried about a second wave of this thing. So I'll just say a couple things. And if you want to chime in, you can. But just the important thing, what these guys talked about, it's so amazing how our immune system works and we can educate our immune system. right? We can build antibodies to things. We can educate our immune system by giving it what it needs and removing the things that it doesn't need. And so that's the whole germ theory versus terrain theory. But if all of you guys on this line and everybody in the country takes this action now, there won't be a second wave, right? And so I don't want people to live in fear of that either. I heard a couple people today saying, well, there's another quarantine coming around the corner. So again, that's the whole stress response. But if we all do the right things and let our bodies do what it needs to do, there won't be a second wave.
Kim,
so,
before you get into the nutrition side of things, let me address a little bit on that too. So the reason why through the history of mankind, even though this is not the first pandemic that the human species has survived all of these other pandemics, is because when enough healthy people get exposed to the germ and they've got a strong enough immune system, then they develop antibodies, and essentially they start to protect the rest of the people around them. That's it's called herd immunity. And the problem with running and hiding in your house is that a lot of people that are strong enough and healthy enough to be exposed and survive these germs, and as you'll see, like lots of people, they are exposed to the coronavirus and they don't even express any symptoms. Some people don't get much more than a cold or mild symptoms, and it's only the people that are severely immunocompromised or health compromised that are ones that are in danger. So, I mean, to me, if anything made sense, and you're going to start hiding people away, maybe take the people at the riskiest populations, and you can't just classify that by race or age or gender. That's ridiculous, because there's so many people that I know that are well above 60, 70, and 80 that have titanium immune systems. I know lots of people that are young that have severely compromised immune systems. So you can't just categorize like who you're going to shelter in place and hide away just based on general factors. There's so much that goes into this. And so it's hard to maybe create general guidelines, but you have to be able to interpret that information individually. And so there could be a general guideline, but if you're doing all the right things and that you're never sick and you're not on any medications because your body's been expressing in such an ideal level of health, even though you're 65 years old, I would be far less concerned than someone who's already got a diagnosis of 3 major diseases and they smoke cigarettes and drink terribly and eat McDonald's every single day. There's a lot to consider when we're interpreting the world around us. And again, it comes down to having an understanding of fundamental truth and having good values. So.
Yep. Okay. So switching gears, and I know we spent a lot of time on that whole first section, but it's so important and it's grounding us for the rest of what's coming. And I also know anytime I talk about nutrition, you're going to retain about 10% or less of what I say. So I'm not going to be getting into a lot of the nuts and bolts. All the goodies we have for you are going to walk you through that, and we're going to be there every step of the way. So I'm going to kind of give you an overview of it and hit some of the high points. But here's the thing with nutrition. Like, we want to give you a big picture. So we are focusing on whole foods that are close to the source. So think an apple off of a tree versus an apple pie, right? Apple pie is extremely processed. So we want to get as close to the source as possible, focus on, when it comes to animal products, naturally raised. When it comes to produce, that it's naturally cultivated, organic if it needs to be, that sort of thing. So those are big picture. And it's so funny how we've just gotten like so off track, like from where nutrition has been and should be. And so at some point, all food was organic, right? All food was organic. So I always make the joke that when we go to the grocery store and I head to the natural or organic section, it should be the opposite. Everything should be natural and organic, and we should have the processed food section, right? It's flip-flopped. So that's how far away we've gotten. And I always like to, when I want you guys walking away from this, to be thinking about some of these slides and these points. So 3 major dangers in our food supply right now: sugar, fat, and toxins. Sugar, we're eating way, way too much of it. The average, I think, is 35 teaspoons a day for the average American. Kids are probably even more than that. Imagine going to your cabinet and getting 35 teaspoons of sugar in the day. You wouldn't, but it's hidden in everything we're eating. And then fat, we've eliminated all the good, healthy fats in our diet and replaced them with all of these man-made, hydrogenated, trans fats, all of these things that are just destroying our health. And then when it comes to toxins, I mean, we have so many additives. I think the last I looked, 150 pounds of additives is what the average person eats every single year. And we have stuff being put on the market, pulled off the market, things being recalled. We have cancer-causing agents in our food, like glyphosate. You guys have all heard of Monsanto and glyphosate. So all of our wheat products are highly sprayed with this toxic stuff. And so we have to be different, and we have to stay away from this garbage food and give your body what it needs. So in light of this COVID thing, what happens to the people that are eating this way, that are eating all the sugar and the bad damaged fats and not getting enough of the good fats and all the toxins? Of course they're more susceptible, right? And so we have to get rid of the garbage. And that's honestly too why some people say, oh, well, what about this diet? And what about that diet? And what about this plan? One of the main reasons any plan will work, at least in the short term, is that it eliminates the processed foods. So if you just do that, if you guys can just do that, or just stop drinking soda, or just give up the French fries, I'm telling you, it's going to be a massive transformation in your life. And hey, if you guys want to jump in at any point, just interrupt me, okay?
Yeah, well, I will say something about that. Just getting back to the immune system, all three of those are major immunosuppressants.
Yeah.
I mean, just if you're looking to build a titanium immune system, these are the three areas you've got to begin and you've got to address.
Yep. So revolutionize your diet. So I went from the bad 3 things to the 4 main changes. And again, we don't need to get into each of the nuts and bolts. I'll hit the highlights, but just, maybe take a picture of your screen right now. Clean up your carbs, fix your fats, perfect your proteins, and trash the toxins. Easy to remember, right? May not be as easy to do and to implement into your life, especially if you've fallen into some bad habits and patterns, but you guys can do it. We've seen a lot of people do it. I see some people on the line right now that have done it. And so here they are doing it again. And by the way, all of us are doing this right along with you. Like, this is our chance too. We use these opportunities for these 30-day challenges to reground ourselves and to increase our game and to increase our health. So we're doing it right along with you. And the other thing too is I see some questions coming in. So we're going to get through everything. And if the questions aren't answered, I'm going to see if we have time to loop back around. If not, don't worry. We'll make sure all of your questions get answered for sure. Okay. So people say, well, what do I do first? What's the very first thing I do? So this is really easy. Change the animal products first. Now, I know some of you may be plant-based, and we can talk about that. That's, there's some nuts and bolts there that everyone needs to know. You can be successful on these plans being plant-based, but good, healthy animal products are extremely nutritious, extremely great sources of protein. So when it comes to animal products, you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck here because of the fact that this is where all the hormones, antibiotics, all of the medications that the animals get, what they're eating. And I used to say, we don't want to be eating grain-fed beef anymore, but they're feeding these cows way worse than grain. They're feeding them stale candy and stuff like that. Remind me, and I'll post the video of that. It's crazy. So we want to focus on grass-fed, grass-finished beef and dairy. That would be the milk and cheese products. Free-range chicken, which would include turkey too, and eggs, and then wild-caught fish. None of this farm-raised fish. They're feeding fish corn now. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So we want these animals to be eating their natural diet, which makes them healthy and in turn makes us healthy. So when we're eating the flesh of sick animals that have, improper fatty acid ratios and toxins built up in their system, that's going right into us. And we are, Fred will say it in a minute, but we're not just what we eat. What are we, Fred?
We are what we eat.
Yes, thank you. It's like a tongue twister. But yes, we are what we eat. We have to be thinking about that stuff. And so there's also this thing called bioaccumulation of toxins. And so like concentrated toxins, I think it takes, 30 pounds of grain to make 1 pound of beef. So if you think about all that grain, all that glyphosate being concentrated in that 1 pound of flesh of that animal, you're going to have a huge bang for your buck when you start cleaning up your meats. And so I'll say that, I eat a lot of good quality meats, but when I go out to eat, I become much more on the vegetarian side because I'm really, really, really particular about the kind of meats that I eat. So you guys could do that too. And then, you guys like that slide? Does my husband like that slide? I know he's finding the gummy bears in there. So I wanted to put this slide on there so you can look at it one last time. You're not going to be seeing any of this for the next 30 days. We have to get the sugar out. What?
I will say that there are solutions for everything. So
that's true.
I know some things that look just like that are on the plan. So we've got you. So anybody out there, if you're intimidated by anything that she's talking about, we've got a solution for everything for everybody. I absolutely promise you, there's never been an easier time to eat really clean in the United States of America in this culture than there is right now.
Yeah. And we are also going to give you all the nuts and bolts of everything. We have an ebook for you that I put together that tells you this is what you eat, this is what you don't eat. It's really easy. We're also going to teach you how to become good label readers so that you can find the sugars, because I promise you it's in there and you're going to be shocked at what you're eating that has sugar in it. So, and then we're going to be steering a lot of you towards what we call the advanced plan. And a lot of you will say, oh, well, that's like keto, or is it like paleo? And it's similar in some ways to some of those things, but the biggest difference is that we focus on the quality of the nutrients. So we're very specific in the quality of the nutrients. And then so on the advanced plan, we're severely limiting the amount of carbohydrates you're eating. So grains, wheats, breads, pasta, all that stuff that everyone loves. We're even limiting those high sugar fruits. And it may be for a period of time and it may be forever. It depends on where you are with your health. And people say, well, how long will I need to do this? And the answer is, you know, until you reach your health goals, basically. But some people feel so incredible when they start eliminating those processed foods and all the sugars and allow their body to become fat burners, that they choose to do it because they're sleeping better, their energy levels up, they're losing weight or optimizing their weight, everything. There's no downside to it. Let's put it that way. Right, guys? There's no downside to it. Literally nothing, no downside. So there's nothing to lose, everything to gain from doing it.
And the things to gain when you eat on the advanced plan is that this is not just a immune boosting type of nutrition plan, but this is a fat burning, alkalizing, detoxifying type of nutrition plan. And it just, again, charts a different course for your future, for your whole health future and everything that you're going to become.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll say about this, and then I want to talk about one other topic and then we'll move on to exercise. But, you know, so a lot of people are really intimidated when they hear things like this, when I tell people they can't have their toast and their cereal and their candy. But listen, it's part of the reason that you crave that stuff is the exact reason why you should do this. So when you crave anything, you're almost a slave to that thing, right? And so we need to break through those things. And it's not just a mindset thing. It's not just willpower. Your body is now physiologically like addicted to the stuff. So we have to break that pattern. The only way to do that is to break through those cravings. So like I said, when I tell everybody when they start the advanced plan, 10 to 14 days, it's like clockwork. You may have headaches. Your family may not be around you, not want to be around you. You may have severe cravings. But I promise you, you're not going to go hungry. So you should be able to eat as much as you want to be full, but you're still going to have those massive cravings. And that tells you that you're a sugar burner. If you're having cravings, that equals being a sugar burner. So we want to break you through all of that. And you can do it. It's easy to do.
Yeah, you were just addicted to sugar. That's what it says.
Yep. And you feel so much better and more liberated when you break free of that stuff that it's unbelievable. So it's a mindset thing too. Okay, so moving on. I wanted to hit on this because I literally have people come in all the time with their giant bag full of supplements and say, hey, can you look at this? Can you look at that? And nobody has any idea really what they should be taking or if they even need it. And the quality of some of the supplements out there, you guys, is awful. You're better off not taking anything than taking some of the garbage that is out there. So why do we need to supplement? Like if I'm eating really well, which I try to do all the time, why would I need a supplement? And even though, you know, we try to eat as healthy as we can, there's still problems. Our soils are depleted. Things are traveling cross country. Like if I want to get an organic, whatever it is, it may not grow here in Georgia during certain times. It may be coming from California or Mexico or somewhere else. So it's traveling. Things have been hybridized. It's lost nutrients. An apple today doesn't taste like an apple of 40 years ago. It just doesn't. And so it's lost some of the nutrients. So there's certain things that everybody needs, right? That are supplemental to their diet, not in any way to replace it, but to supplement it. So I want to just hit a couple of them because on the next slide or the one after this, I want to talk about some things related to COVID-19 too. So real quick, we just came out with this. It's really simple and easy and awesome. So you have your little packet that you rip open so you don't have to have all your bottles out on the counter. And so this has an optimal omega, which are those good quality fats. It has a vitamin B, vitamin D3, magnesium, and I think that's it. I think that was 5, right? So all you do is rip open the packet, and those are things that everybody needs. Like a good quality multivitamin is gonna cover all your bases, getting those good fats in, making sure your vitamin D levels are good and that you're getting it every single day, and vitamin B, which your body needs for everything. Same thing with magnesium. So that's the easiest place to start. So for you guys that are going down this path and want to do this 30-day challenge, this is a perfect place to start. So when you do this, along with changing your nutrition, it's going to be awesome. And then, you know, I mentioned the whole second wave thing. And you guys, if you've researched anything at all, you know, you've heard in the natural health world, or even, you know, I heard it on some mainstream stuff too. Vitamin C, vitamin D. It's hammered, right? Vitamin C, vitamin D when it comes to warding off viruses or just overall being healthy. And so that's a really good thing to be doing right now. And like I said, if we want everybody to avoid this second wave, you got to make sure your vitamin D levels are good. Something like silver, something like zinc. You guys, I know Dr. White, you had a lot of info and research on zinc, and especially related to COVID. Did you want to add anything there for that?
I think, so that we don't get into the weeds, which is easy for me to do. Let's save that. We're going to keep them hanging on. Let's save some of that for the next webinar that we do.
I like it. But you guys, I'm sure, have heard around in your circles about zinc. And then something like
But it is good. There's lots of research that backs it up. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Tons on all of these things. And monolaurin is just a more natural sort of antibiotic, antiviral. So we've had really good success with that. We'll make sure you guys get all the info on that stuff too. But I know a lot of you are supplementing, so you want to make sure too that the stuff is third-party tested and all of that stuff. And then I already mentioned this, but this is a really good time for everyone to be getting out in the sun to get even more vitamin D. You can't have enough of it, right? And none of us get enough of it. And so if you're going to be outside, ideally you want 70% of your body exposed to sun between the hours of 10 and 4, which is when everybody says, don't go outside. Avoid the sunscreens. That's for another topic too. But we've got to get our vitamin D levels up as individuals and as this country. And I'm telling you, a lot of things would look really, really different. Really different. So like I said, that's high level view of nutrition. Don't worry, you're going to get this Nutrition 101 ebook. It has all, like literally every food listed, what's on each plan. We have our core plan and our advanced plan, what to eat, what not to eat, the why behind it, how it handles weight loss and all of that other stuff. So you guys will get this, don't worry. And then also people are like, oh, well, I don't know what to make or how do I cook? So I've got another little booklet that has 5 super easy recipes for breakfast, 5 for lunch, 5 for dinner, 5 for snacks. So you guys can be really successful. This is all easy stuff, easy to do.
Yeah, that's good. And you know, when it comes to the nutrition side of things, I think it's don't be too intimidated out there. For the people that have been doing this for a long time, you know, this may be all about taking your game to the next level. Those who haven't, you know, don't sweat it. We're going to give everybody access to being personally coached through this 30-day challenge. And we'll be happy to sit down with you and see where you're at and what you're ready for, and maybe give you some suggestions on how to approach this. And then literally, like I said in the beginning, we will take you by the hand and walk you through the process, you know, day by day. And it's over the period of the 30 days that you can begin to make those massive transformations. It doesn't all have to happen, you know, tomorrow. In fact, we can even start the 30-day challenge tomorrow. We're doing this informational session a couple of days ahead of time so that afterwards you could start to, you know, gather all these resources together and then get everything in order to be successful. So don't be too intimidated, you know, by thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do tomorrow to get going? We've done this a lot of times for a lot of years. You're going to be okay, and we'll slowly take you through the process based on where you're at. And so one thing I always say, it's like, you know, most of America, we are just racing as fast as we can in the wrong direction. And an informational session like this is just a moment in time where we can grab you and say, hold on a second, stop racing in the wrong direction. Just pause for a second. And then hopefully something that we say during the course of this little information session that will maybe turn you in the right direction. And even if you start moving slowly in the wrong direction, it's a lot better than moving very quickly. If you start moving slowly in the right direction, it's a lot better than moving very quickly in the wrong direction, like the rest of America. But I will say this too, and this is what we get to witness over the years. When we start getting people that start racing in the right direction, oh my goodness, God put the most amazing healing power inside the human body. And we watch people get off 10, 12, 14, 16 medication, reversing major diseases. And it's just incredible to witness what the healing power is in the body. And people say, oh, it's never a miracle. It's just a return to normal. You were supposed to be healthy all along. But you got to follow the laws and principles that govern health. And that gets me into the next one. So now, one thing that you must do if you want to be healthy is exercise. Sorry, didn't make the law and the principle, but you actually have a genetic requirement for a certain amount of movement every single day. And when you decide not to exercise, then by choosing to sit on the couch and be sedentary, your conscious decision is also causing your genes to flip into and express into a dysfunctional and diseased position. It's epigenetics, or how your lifestyle affects your genes. So that being said, physical inactivity is an abnormal event for a genome that's programmed for activity. You have to exercise if you want to be healthy and well. And what was like one of the things that we did during the COVID thing, go hide in the corner of your house and nobody's exercising. We shut down the parks. We shut down the gyms. We stopped all exercise. People stopped going outside, getting the vitamin D, right? People are held up in their house. They're not exercising and just eating all junk food. And if you went to the grocery store, especially early on, I would look in the carts and it would just be ring dings and Twinkies. And so it's like, how's this going to be the answer? There's got to be the other side of the equation. You've got to be exercising your body. And I will say this too, and I say this every single time when I talk about exercise, doing any kind of exercise is better than doing nothing, right? And so some people love to run, and some people like to lift weights, and some people like to do CrossFit, and some people, like to do Pilates or yoga. Doing anything is better than doing nothing. So when we set out to create an exercise program for maximized living, I wanted to have an understanding of fundamental truths about exercise. And I wanted to come up with a program that could change the planet. I wanted to come up with a program that would elicit the greatest response as far as your health and your well-being goes, that elicits the greatest physiological response. I wanted to study what kind of exercise you have to do to combat cancer, what kind of exercise you have to do you need to do in order to beat diabetes, or to reverse heart disease, or to lose weight. And so you do all the research and all the science, and it was just amazing what the answers were. And it came down to the most effective way to exercise is something called metabolic conditioning. And so metabolic conditioning is exactly what it sounds like. It's conditioning your body's metabolism. Your body's metabolism are your energy pathways that takes the food you eat and then turns it into energy so that you can live your life and sustain physiological processes and everything like that. And so when we don't exercise, what happens is it becomes a don't use it, lose it type syndrome, not just in our physical appearance and in the muscles, and we get weak and flabby and things like that, but your metabolic pathways begin to degrade and break down. And you find that most diseases that we face as a culture in this new millennium are diseases of metabolic pathways. And so it's a metabolic degradation. So we've got to specifically target those things. So working metabolic pathways means that you're plugged into short duration, more of a high intensity type of exercise. Short duration, high intensity type of exercise. So max T3, what does that stand for? Well, the 3 T's are time, type, and tempo. And they're like dials. And there's 3 different dials that you can alter that you will literally dial up the kind of outcome that you get and the effects that it has on your body's physiology and your expression of health and well-being. And so that's what's beautiful about Max T3 is we're constantly changing those dials so that we can approach the array of different metabolic energy systems that your body boasts. And so that we're not just locked into one kind of exercise. And by doing short duration, high intensity exercise, it's got this wonderful effect on both your anaerobic and your aerobic systems. But the opposite's not true. Just by, going and running for long periods of time, you don't affect the anaerobic systems. And, some of those systems in your metabolic pathways are very critical when it comes to really combating and reversing disease and sickness. So we really wanted to think about it all. The other side of it was that we wanted to come up with exercises or exercise programs that virtually everybody could do so we could change the planet. So I do work with lots of Olympic athletes, and I also work with lots of lay people. And so I'd love to come up with a program that even the Olympians would struggle, or that anybody would struggle with, and that everybody would be on the corner puking. That would make me really happy and excited. But at the end of the day, that's not an exercise program that's going to change the planet. We've got to also appeal to the world-class athletes' grandmother and their great grandmother and the patients that we work with every single day that had the hip replacement or that are 200 pounds overweight, that have the diagnosis of cancer, heart disease, or diabetes, the people with the bad shoulders. And we've got to work with the people that are sedentary, the people that were never athletes, the people that haven't worked out ever in their life. And so we've got to work out with everybody. And I will say this, and we're going to be doing another informational session just on the exercise piece, but you always want to approach your exercise program in the regard where you never want to find out tomorrow you did too much today. And so when you're exercising at a certain intensity, let's find out what your body is going to respond well to. And you can always do less and then do more as you go along. The most fundamental principle of exercise is the law of overload, the law of adaptation. And so you've got to overload your system and you have to get uncomfortable. And by doing so, your body adapts and it changes, and then you become stronger, you become fitter. But not everybody's ready for a high intensity workout come tomorrow. And so the way I'm going to tell you to approach the fitness in this 30-day challenge, because you are going to be given workouts, is that if you haven't been doing it, well, then do less than you think you should. Approach it lighter than you think you should and see how your body responds in those first couple of workouts, and then you could start to pick up the pace. And so even if you have been working out, but not working out with short duration, high intensity exercise, heed the same exact warning. And because it'll surprise you, it'll shock you how much it really strains the body and creates this physiological effect on your system. And so again, you don't want to find out tomorrow you did too much today. No one, listen to me, no one is allowed to get hurt doing any of these programs. And if you're a patient in our office, come and talk to me if you have any concerns. If you're a patient in another office, or even if you're not a patient in our office and you're not a patient in another Maximize Living office, you can come and talk to us if you want to get some advice on how to approach programs, especially if you've got specific concerns and issues. So let's flip the slide. So go back to that one, Kim. I'll just comment on that. So not only are you going to get amazingly fit, but this, like when you do the science, it's amazing how this kind of exercise, even though we're talking about workouts that last 6 to 18 minutes, it's amazing how it outperforms many other programs, even workouts that last an hour and a half or even beyond when it comes to fat burning. So the good news is not only are you going to boost your immune system, but this is going to have this amazing effect on burning fat and really getting ripped. And a lot of the magic happens even after you're done exercising because of the metabolic effect that it has on the body, which we'll talk about when we get into another session. Flip to the next one. And we also, even though metabolic conditioning is our fundamental principle, in almost all, not every single workout is going to be based on this metabolic effect, but we also will always be adding in all of the other characteristics of being fit. And so we're going to be working on strength and endurance and flexibility, core integrity, coordination, balance, agility, power, all of it. It's all part of the program. And flip to the next one. because it is a comprehensive fitness system. So you could go back. You just don't want me.
No, I don't know what happened.
You didn't even want me to put it in the presentation.
I know.
So,
I was like,
I like the way you work. I also like the way you called me out to see if I was paying attention during the nutrition part. And you asked me to finish that sentence. So, but anyway, but no, I do love this chart. I want people to understand this really is a comprehensive system. It's not by chance. It's not by accident, like many other programs. If they fall into certain kind of effects that it has on the body, like when you see these amazing transformations doing Max T3, it is all by specific design. So on one side of the equation, if you look at the right-hand side where it says fitness elements, yeah, we do focus on the metabolic conditioning, but we do add those other elements, the power, strength, endurance, speed, agility. Like you'll see that in the workouts by specific design. On the other side of that little equation where it says fitness elements, not only we look at all these other characteristics of fitness. We're going to be looking how your exercise is going to affect your nervous system and the whole neuromuscular integrity. That is such a critical component upon what we do, and it's by specific design. You'll see this, and we'll highlight that. The whole focusing on core integrity and being functionally fit. It's multi-joint compound movements. We want you fit for life. One of the greatest definitions I've ever seen of fitness is being able to live each day and live it to the fullest and be able to perform daily activities, respond to emergency situations, and be able to go out and perform recreational and sports activities. And so that's what it means to be fit, being able to live each day. You got to be able to pick up a box and put it on a shelf. That's a multi-joint compound movement. We're not just going to sit there and do arm curls that's just isolating one muscle or one joint. And so we're going to see how the body works together and synergistically. There's always different workouts. And this, we're going to highlight 10 different workouts from our Max T3 online program, and you'll be able to do each one of those, 2 to 3 times throughout the workout. But in our fitness center, we literally have not done the same workout in any day in 6 years. There's always a different workout. There's lots of variability, so your body never plateaus or adapts. There's a body balance principle. We want to be looking at how we're going to affect a level of fitness from head to toe, from front to back, from left to right, at all joints through all ranges of motion. And so it's amazing. You'll see all these different angles that we hit the joints at. It's even doing a push-up, you'll see literally almost 200 different variations of a push-up in Max T3. And on the other side of the equation, energy systems, and you have your anaerobic and aerobic system, and those are broken down further when you understand metabolic pathways. But in the process of working on the metabolic conditioning, we're going to be looking at specifically the effects on hormones. And so when we start talking about hormones, that's when we're talking about the endocrine system, which has the greatest and most immediate impact on how well your body's burning fat and building muscle. And so we're going to elicit that ideal response. And so there's the afterburn effect that I mentioned a second ago. Even post-exercise, your body's still going to be in that state of creating an ideal body composition. And then we're going to talk about becoming a high-energy machine. And on a cellular level, 74 trillion cells, you're only as healthy as the cells in your body. We're going to condition each one of those cells by specific design. And so you put all this together, and it's incredible. The results that you'll get, they're undeniable. All you have to do is show up and check the box. Approach it the right way. No one's allowed to get hurt. And it's just day by day. Even though the workouts are short duration, high intensity, our workout value is a marathon. We're looking at how we're going to create values for a lifetime. And so the greatest news of all of this is in the fraction of time of conventional programs, we can get you the best results. So again, like it says at the bottom, you're going to maximize your time, you're going to maximize your effort, and you're going to maximize your results. Really cool stuff. What's next there, Kim?
Oh, cool. Okay, so you guys are going to get just kind of an overview of what he just said to how Max T3 works, why you would ever want to do metabolic conditioning. So you guys are going to get that too. And then access to Max T3 workouts. We've selected some whole body ones that are really awesome that are going to get you guys real excited about it. So you'll have access to that as well. And yeah, I think that's it for the exercise piece. But don't worry, we got you covered there. You're going to get a lot more info on that.
And let me just backtrack real quick. COVID was a good thing. And so God works in mysterious ways. So we turned this into a very strong positive. So we just shot 50 and on we're about to shoot another 50 new Max T3 workouts that are going to be available online. So we could start creating that same kind of variability that we do have at the fitness center. And there's going to be another 50 right after that. And another 50 is going to come after that. And that's what those sample workouts, they are samples of those modules that we shot over this pandemic-ish situation that we're dealing with.
Yep. Okay, so real quick, I don't have time to go into the nuts and bolts of this too, but just realize that we are more toxic than ever before. So all of the things we use in our home and on our body, our skin is the largest organ, right? Our skin is the largest organ in our body, and we're putting crazy stuff, crazy toxic stuff on it. And in light of this whole COVID thing, you know, we're using crazy amounts of hand sanitizer that has triclosan in it. Go look up triclosan. That could be your homework. These cleaners all over the place. Everything is super ultra sanitized. And, you know, all of us are predicting that there's going to be some huge ramifications from that later on. In fact, my husband went to a big box store and took a picture of the container that they were using to spray all the carts. And it literally says on there, skull and crossbones, do not come in contact with skin. And that's what we're spraying all over everything. And people are carrying around jugs of hand sanitizer. And the other thing I want to hit on, because we're getting into the warmer months, is the whole sunscreen thing. I mentioned it a little bit ago, but you know, the sunscreens that are on the market are so highly toxic. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. When we're putting these things on our little kids, I highly recommend you go to the ewg.org/skin deep. There are some sunscreens and sun lotions that you can get that don't have those toxic ingredients that are a much better option. But also, like, ever since I improved my health, changed my diet, I don't ever use sunscreen. Now, I'm not going out, you know, all day long for 8 hours in the sun, but I do work up to it. And, you know, skin cancer doesn't come from the sun. Sun's been around forever. Skin cancer comes from inside out. I had a patient one time tell me, she's like, I have skin cancer, like here on the small of my back. And she said, I guarantee you that spot on my back has never seen the light of day. Never seen the light of day. And so we have to take a step back, but just know that those sunscreens that we're slathering all over ourselves are highly toxic. If you're going to do it, get a good one. And also it blocks vitamin D. Your body can't make the vitamin D it needs if you're trying to block the sun, the UV rays. So anyway, I wanted to touch on those two things. So Dr. White, you've been very patient over there.
Yeah, of course.
So
we talked about, so in the next few minutes, just to kind of close it out here. So we talk about mindset, we talk about stress, we talk about nutrition, we talk about toxins, we talk about exercise. But what ties all of this together, right? So it's the nervous system. So I started out by talking about, you know, if we go back to immune system just briefly, how intimate the immune system and the nervous system are together, that the immune system is actually considered by many scientists to be an extension of the nervous system in terms of sensory, right? So it's how the nervous system is able to see what's coming into the body. So your nervous system, you live your life through your nervous system, right? Everything that you experience is through your nervous system. And so for those of you who are patients who are on this webinar right now, hopefully understand that concept. For those of you who aren't, that may be something you haven't thought of. And so in chiropractic, we talk about, for 125 years, we've talked about and acknowledged the fact that there's a higher intelligence, right? That in everything in this universe, there is a universal intelligence that maintains the existence and gives to it all of its properties. And so within a human body and organism, that universal intelligence is called innate intelligence. In other words, there's an inborn wisdom in the body that coordinates all of that. I mean, it speaks of an intelligent design. There's no way that you can sit and listen to how amazing the immune system is. And when Dr. Roberto later on in the next several weeks, as well as Kim, get into more nutrition and fitness and how it actually affects the body, for the body to be able to coordinate all of this and do all these things, most of it you have no idea about, because most of it's subconscious. That's just amazing. That's intelligent design. So there's a life force that exists in the body that keeps the body together, that gives to us our properties and protects us and allows us to thrive and allows us to be the best version of ourselves. So what does that have to do with the nervous system? Well, that innate intelligence, that life force is expressed through your nervous system. I mean, what's the difference between, this is going to be a bit morbid, but a corpse, a fresh corpse, and someone who's alive. That fresh corpse has a nervous system, has the blood, has all the elements, all the organs, every single thing that we can ever think of, that corpse has. But there's one thing that that corpse is missing, and that's that life force and that energy. So that life force is expressed in and through the nervous system. Now, our design, how God designed us. And so that life force comes from the brain. We call that above, down, inside out. It travels from the brain through the spinal cord across the nerves, and it goes to every cell, tissue, and organ in your body. So every organ, your heart's beating, your lungs are breathing, your immune system is mobilizing these cells that I talked about earlier. You're breaking down food. It allows you to contract your muscles and be able to internalize the oxygen that comes in so you can exercise. All of that life force is expressed through the nervous system. So your nervous system is your master control system. You have to guard it well. And so I started off by saying, what can you do to protect that nervous system? Well, you have to understand how it works. So obviously, for you to be healthy, you need to have a healthy nervous system. But we know also that to have a healthy nervous system, you have to have a healthy spine. And the reason why is because your spine has two major functions. The first function is to hold us up. It's called posture. But the second function is the protection of that very nervous system. So our spines is the protector and guardian of that spinal cord and nervous system, the central nervous system. As a matter of fact, to have proper brain function, you actually have to have, science has proven this to be true, you have to have proper spinal alignment and function. So on the screen, you'll see what the alignment looks like. You know, from the front, it has to be straight. From the side, you have 3 curves in there. And so those curves and that alignment and the function of the spine is integral to the functioning of a healthy nervous system. So when the spine is lined up correctly, when the spine is functioning properly, your nervous system is able to function properly, is able to survey and be aware of what's going on in the body, is able to integrate all of the information coming from the body, is able to repair the body, is able to maintain the body and to heal the body. And so there's a back and forth communication that goes from the brain through the spine out to the body. And so as long as that spine is healthy, lined up correctly and functioning well, and that information can go back and forth, you're going to have that life being expressed out to the tissue at 100%. And now as you eat correctly, you exercise, and you support that life flowing across the tissues with all those things, now you're going to be a greater expression of health. Now you're going to be at your higher self. However, because of the stresses that we encounter in life, whether it be sudden or over time, physical traumas, it could be thoughts, it could be emotional stress and worry, it can even be toxins, the nutrition, the air that we breathe, the things that we put on our skin, the things that Kim talked about, they cause stress to the body. Those are foreign to the body. And as they cause stress to the body, they cause stress to the very skeletal system of the body. And they can cause 2 or more bones to move out of alignment, which is called a subluxation, or entire sections of the spine over time to shift out of alignment because they're compensating. And so when you have subluxations interfere and disrupt the communication between the brain and the body and the body and the brain. So when you have these spinal subluxations in your spine, they're literally decreasing the information and the life force going out to the body. And also what's happening is that the brain now becomes either totally unaware or less aware as to what is going on in the body, so it can appropriately respond. And this is beautifully demonstrated by research by Dr. Heidi Havoc, for example, out of New Zealand, and there are other researchers both in chiropractic and neuroscience that are proving this to be true. So as chiropractors, our job is to detect and correct those subluxations. See, because when those subluxations are left there uncorrected, whatever that nervous system controls, which is everything, now starts to degenerate, now start to weaken. And so not only do you see a decrease in your performance, but you actually start to see a change in your physiology. You see a change in your body's ability to adapt, to maintain itself, to heal, and to repair itself. And over time, the body degenerates, and now that can lead to early death. You know, it's amazing. Most people come into the office and they come because of, neck pain and back pain and headaches. And then they'll come to us and they'll say, I'm feeling better. My neck pain is feeling better. My headaches are feeling better. But I'm also noticing that my blood pressure is going down. I'm getting a little dizzy. So I had to go to my medical doctor, and they had to reduce my medication. Or they'll say stuff like, I was having like constipation or digestive issues, and they're so much better. I had another patient that was so excited because she can eat foods that like spicy foods for the first time in a long time because her acid reflux is better. She's off her medication. I've had patients, and same with Dr. Roberto. So it's not just about me here, obviously. I had a patient that his glaucoma got better. And you might be going, how is that possible? Well, I'll tell you what it isn't. None of the chiropractic is not a gimmick for any of these. The cool thing about chiropractic and what we do is that we don't treat anything. We don't treat any disease, and we don't treat symptoms. This is about human performance. So what we do is we remove the interference and we uncover the layers, we stop the pollution, and we allow the body to heal and function and thrive the way God intended it to. And then so what's really happening, and I'm stealing Dr. Roberto's thunder here, is that it's not a miracle. It's actually the body returning to the state that it was intended in the first place. Like, we have to understand that sickness and disease is not the natural state of the human being, right? Health and wellness and abundance and vitality and energy is our God-given right. That is a natural state of the human being. And so the more we move away from the natural order, all the things that we've talked about, it becomes predictable what happens over time. You do see high rates of heart disease. You do see high rates of cancer. You do see high rates of all these other diseases. You do see more infectious diseases decimating a portion of the population. And so as we move away from that natural order, these things become predictable. But here's the cool thing about it is that as you get closer to that natural order, guess what starts to happen? And I know some of you are out there saying, hey, but what about this? What about genetics? The reality is that research once again shows that genetics are responsible for 2 to 5% of diseases out there. That means that in 2 to 5% of the times when someone has a disease, they arrive on planet Earth with a genetic defect, right? 95% of the time it's not. It's because of our lifestyle. It's because of our choices. And it's really because of that lack of knowledge. A lot of people said during this time that, it's time to be wise, but wisdom is based on knowledge or experience, one of those two. So if you don't know this stuff that we're talking about and you don't have this knowledge, then what you see as wisdom, unfortunately, is not the wisdom that you think you have, only because it may not be based on truth. So any wisdom that says that you're weak, any wisdom that says that you are not fearfully and wonderfully made, any wisdom that says that you don't have that, you don't have power, I challenge that. I question that. So the reality is that you do have amazing potential, right? God put an amazing healing power in the body. And so all we have to do is understand what the laws and principles are that govern that and tap into it. Now, I was saying to the team here in the office that, chiropractic, max living, the 5 essentials in this way of living has totally radically changed my life and my family's life. And I'm pretty confident if it wasn't for these principles and how I live my life today, that I would not be as healthy as I am. I would be living in fear right now, and I would be lost, So I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I'm very passionate about this because I've seen lives change. And I believe that in Max Living, we have a mission. And we really have a mission to reveal these truths and these principles to people. And we just know that if you plug into this, man, you're going to be awesome. So I know I went a little long. Sorry about that, guys. I think we got like 4 minutes. I'm done. Down to 3. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it may literally stop us in the next 3 minutes. So, yeah, sorry.
Let's do some housekeeping real quick, and then some parting thoughts. You want to do the housekeeping, Kim?
Sure. I was just trying to forward the slides here so I can get to. So,
yeah. And we'll have to talk about some of the stuff next time.
Yeah. So you guys can share this. Please share this. We're not starting the official challenge until the 8th. But the only way I know that you want all this free goodies and stuff is if you go here, healthbackchallenge.eventbrite.com, put your name in there. That way I'll have your email. I can make sure you have every single thing you need. And again, share it away. You can share everything. Send people to this to follow up on, but that's the only way I know you want stuff. I'll also post this in the comments here. I promise I'll go through every single question that you guys had tomorrow and answer all of them in the comments. And so I think that's all I have. So you guys can take your time. You have 2 minutes.
I have some housekeeping too. So if you've done this before, you don't have to wait. You could get the information and get started tomorrow if you want to. So feel free to jump in, and we're finishing right at the 4th of July only because it's a holiday and you set yourself up for failure. But if you feel like you want to keep going, then by all means, go ahead and do that. We're here to support all of you in any way that we can. So you'll have access to chat rooms and to us personally, email or text, either way. If you have any personal issues or questions for any of us. And then just know that we'll be doing informational sessions on Thursday each week during this challenge. So you'll get a lot more depth on these different topics. And then so parting thoughts, Kim, why don't you start us off? Dr. White, why don't you go? And then I'll say something. We'll get out of here.
Yeah,
right,
I mean, go ahead. You go first.
Go ahead. No. Go.
I was going to say, I'm really, really excited about this. I know we all need this right now. I know I personally need this too. We need some good, positive vibes out there. We need to come together as a group. And I think this is going to be really great to be able to do that. That's all I got.
It's time to be awesome, and it's time to take your health back.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, as Mark Twain said, that when you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. So just because everybody's doing something a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way to do. It usually means it's not. When 340 million people believe in a bad idea, it's still a bad idea. It's time to take charge of your health, take charge of your life.
Yep. All right. We still have 20 seconds, so you guys can keep talking until it cuts you off.
Yeah.
Hey,
so,
Dr. Roberta, one thing I didn't talk about is the role of the spine and exercise in terms of the safety aspect of it.
Well, that's something that we can talk about. So again, if anyone's got issues, we'll talk to them because we want to make sure that when you're exercising, you don't compromise your spine, your nervous system, or your health. So if you've got issues, just personally contact us and we'll make sure that you get the information. And again, the last thing, even if you decide to shelter in place, even if you decide to wear a mask or whatever, just make sure that you're following these 5 essentials, doing the right things to create a titanium immune system and get your body to become vibrantly alive, healthy, and well, and expressing in its ideal state.
Hey, it didn't cut us off, so you can keep talking if you want, but we won't.
We're
finished on time. It's so
good.
Great. But I promise I'll follow up on all of your questions. And please, 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 guys, we decided to do this thing. We usually charge for this thing. We're not charging anything for it. Share this link with all of your friends and family. They don't have to live here to do it. Like, everything's free. There's no excuses. You don't have to do it all. You can do some of it. You can do any of it, whatever you want. What are you doing? Showing us your messed up.
What is that?
No, that's a 0. That's
Okay.
my method board. So that's the number. I'm doing a thing on numbers, and yesterday was a 0. And people say, well, what's that? There's 0 excuses to do this challenge.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you live. You don't have to be a patient. It doesn't cost anything. The time constraint's not an issue because you do it on your own time. You could do as much or as little as you want of this. There's 0 excuse to be plugging into this thing.
Oh, and I didn't mention private Facebook group. So we'll be posting inspiration. We'll be posting other stuff. People can ask questions. Like, you'll see our faces a lot, but you can ask questions. You can post your successes. It's going to be really great. We're making ourselves, all 3 of us have committed, right, guys, to making ourselves accessible to all of you and to do whatever it takes to make people successful in this thing. So you've got all of us for 30 days and beyond. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys.